as I'm getting out of the Marine Corps, so the guy was supposed to do my interview for my checkout to get out of the military. So he's like, what do you want to do with your life, Plazas? And I was like, well, shit, I want to be an engineer. I'm going to do this, that, this. He looks at me and he's just like, why are you going to do that shit? So immediately I was like, what are you doing that's so special that you're criticizing my plan? And he was like, I'm an investor. And right now I'm actually making more money from my investing than I am with the military. And by the time I get out, I'll probably be making twice as much as I'm making with the military. What is investing? How does that work? And he told me to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Right?
Welcome to the Good Life.
Welcome back to another episode of the Good Life Visual Audio Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, C. Muzan. I got Kabi here in the building. Say what's up, man.
That's right, Coach. That's right,
Coach.
What up, though? Shout out. Man, listen, I'm really happy to be here. It's feels like a Monday for me. I had a friend come into town, as you know, young Dougal. So it was like half vacation and half not. and let me tell you this: don't half anything.
No halves, right? Only 100%.
Should have gone 100% vacation. Y'all didn't hear from me till today.
You're learning the lessons, young Jedi. Like it's important to see, like, hey, mixing the business and the pleasure sometimes doesn't always work out the way that we want to, right?
It doesn't. You get 50% of both, which it doesn't really feel right. But anyway, how you doing, brother?
Man, life is good. Life is good. I keep saying it. The sun is shining. The East Coast finally lives again. No,
give them a little sun. They think they're California.
Listen, you want us to be so badly like California anyway.
No.
So at least we get a little sunshine. At least we get a little bit of vitamin D. So that's been a blessing. But yeah, life is good. April's Financial Literacy Month. So we're in the thick of things right now, educating people financially. So that's a real big deal. It's something we've been doing having a lot of conversations, going live, lots of different places. This month specifically, we're talking finances. So that kind of leads in a little bit to our show today, right? We're going to talk a little finances. Got a special guest coming in a little bit later. Our 2x2. 2x2. Today, we're talking about AI, right? This AI race and the threat of all this deep fake and other types of technology that's happening. I don't know if you've been seeing this, man, but it's a big deal. This deep fake technology uses AI and other algorithms to like manipulate audios and videos. So basically you can paste or like recreate somebody's sound, whether that be in music, whether that be a speech. But this deep fake technology is being widespread and people got some mixed thoughts on it, man. So what are your thoughts on this, man?
Is this thing on? Listen. Pull close to your speaker, to your television screen. What's going on here, ladies and gentlemen? Once again, we are missing the point. I think we've got to go one step further, maybe two steps further for some folks, and ask the question, who are the gatekeepers of information, and are we satisfied with the way that things are already set up? Now, see, some of that is we can't backtrack. As a former history teacher, I'll tell you this: there's maybe this amount of history in the world, and we know this amount of it, and we're allowed to talk about this amount of it, and we teach this amount of it. Right. So, when we talk about this deep fake, I think what we're really getting to here is a question of what is real information, what's authentic information. And I think as long as we continue to have a system in place where there are gatekeepers, right, that have access to and determine what it is that is available for people to interpret on their own, I think we're going to have issues. I've said this for a long time. I do really believe in open source information. I think it's now that it's possible, right? And it's been possible for a while. For a long time, it was the gatekeepers were, let's be honest, it was the church, right? Specifically the Catholic Church, control education, control medicine. And they decided what was okay, what wasn't okay. Government, gatekeeper, they decided what's okay, what isn't okay. You can't decide, all right? And a lot of parents try this. You can't decide what your kids actually like dive into when you let them off to public school, even private school. I taught in private school, saying the politics are strong. Right? So I think this is a box. It's a Pandora's box that was open a really long time ago, and we're asking the wrong question. The question we should ask is, are you happy with the way that the gatekeepers are setting up the things now? How you get your information, what you have access to, because it's already limited, right? And whether or not it's true, it's real, it's back, that's going to be harder and harder to answer as we move forward.
From my side, right, I think this AI movement, I think there's a ton of technology that's going to be incredibly helpful, but this deep fake side, this being able to copy somebody's voice or copy somebody's likeness and just literally be able to put it together can run into its own problems, from national security to global security. Like, how do we know what's real? It feels like there's like an attack on like how we get our information, or like what information we believe. And that's a scary place. Better than where it was before, where only a few people held the information anyway. Now it's getting to a place where how do you know what to trust or what to listen to? I think there's going to be some definite positives that come from it, but also a ton of negatives on the other side. I think we just have to see how it plays out.
And let us know your thoughts. I'll be super curious if you're hearing this. What are your thoughts? Who do you agree with? Typically it would be me, but we're not going to go.
Whatever. Let's get a chance to dive in. We got another special guest for you today on the show. We're at episode 114. Again, we want to introduce people to you that are going to bring value and continue to add to the community. And let's just have some conversations around the good life, the things of the good life, health and wealth. And this gentleman that we have coming on is definitely going to be able to have some of these conversations with us. And Kabi, go ahead and introduce.
You know, one amazing thing about doing business online is you get to meet individuals who maybe aren't in your immediate vicinity, but are like-minded individuals. And when we find individuals like that, we try to bring them on a show. There he is, founder of Seven Figure Vet, and he's going to speak more on that. Entrepreneur, and he's got a really interesting story and some really, I think, insights that we align on in terms of the show as a whole, ownership. And I think he's got some really cool insights to give. So I'm super excited to have him here. Mr. Plazas. Did I say that right?
Yeah, but it just depends on what country you're in. You know what I mean? Out here, there'd be like plazas, but out in the States, plazas is fine.
I like that. See, it's kind of very similar actually, because a lot of people see my name, they're like, "Oh, Kobe," right? But when you say it with a Ghanaian accent, all of a sudden it sounds like a totally different. It's a Kabi, right?
I was thinking it was more towards the Spanish, como Kobe. But
yeah, Kabi, yeah, that's right.
It's a whole different world. But thank you for having me here, guys. I appreciate you guys bringing me on here, and I appreciate everybody that's watching for taking the time to watch us and to listen to us.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate and man, we just want to open up, Dave, and kind of give you the floor. Like, introduce yourself to everybody. Again, I know you and Kabi have had some conversations, but let people know kind of a little bit of your background, a little bit of who you are.
Born in Colombia, born in South America. Very lower middle class in Colombia, which is kind of like dead broke in the States. When I was 3 years old, my parents decided to move to the States to go and find the American dream. And you know, it was just, I don't know. Sometimes I tell the story and I feel like it's so normal, but then I remember how important it is for other people to relate. So, you know, when we first got to United States, it was like 3 full families, grandparents and everything, in a 2-bedroom apartment. And you know, that it was just that going on for about like a year and a half until my family was finally able, like my mom and dad were able to like get an apartment. Around like 7 or 8, my parents split up. And so living alone with my mom, we had to move to like lower income places. And being around that, having kind of like a mom that was working all the time, I got surrounded by drugs, violence, gangs, guns, this, that. And when I was about 18, right? So when I was like 6 months of before graduation, I had a really close friend of mine. His name's Tony. We were in class together, and he had invited me to a party that night. It was right by my house. So I told him I wasn't probably going to be able to make it. Couple hours into the party, there was a drive-by. Some guys came by, let off 2 shots, caught him in the head. By the time, because it was so close, I was able to just come to the house, saw that whole thing come down. His mom showed up. You can just imagine the voices and the stuff. It's heavy. And so
you were 18 at this time?
I was like 17, 18. No, I was 18 because I remember I dropped out of school that Monday. So
And this is in Colombia?
no. This is in the States.
Oh, this is in the States.
This is in Orlando.
Orlando. Got it. Okay.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And so yeah. So Monday showed up to school. There was a fight because of that conversation that I got in. They tried to suspend me, and I just dropped out. I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here. I can't be here anymore. There's a lot of people getting into drugs like heavy Percocets and stuff like that, and Xanax, super heavy. And so I hit up the Marine Corps. Like I hit up the Marine Corps recruiters, and I was like, I don't know what I need to do or how I need to do it, but I just need to get out of here. However it is that whatever you need to sign me, if it's to work as a cook, to clean up bathrooms, whatever, infantry, you want me to go shoot, it doesn't matter, bro. Get me the hell out of here. And so they were like, just stay in the office. If you can stay in the office and be here, if there's any contracts that people that don't do their shit, we'll send you out. I ended up leaving before my so my class, I had to get I had to do a DBI program to get the GED. And so I did my DBI program in like a couple of weeks while everybody was still in school. I finished, and then I was just sitting in the Marine Corps office. They sent me out, literally graduation. So I as everybody was graduating, I was heading to Tampa to get registered into the Marine Corps. Went to the Marines, learned how to be a man. You know, the Marine Corps was one of the most important things in my life. I think, you know, I had a lot of mentors, and where it all changed, right? So grew up broke my whole life. My mom never made more than $1,000, like just no financial literacy whatsoever. As I'm getting out of the Marine Corps, most people, when they get out of the military, they try to create this like super complicated plan. Like, I'm going to go to college and then I'm going to get the certificate and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that so that I can become a real estate agent, right? They go and they add just a whole bunch of unnecessary things to do something. And so I did the same. And unluckily for me, or luckily for me, I had a gunny. I had an E7 who did my interview instead of the guy that was supposed to. So the guy was supposed to do my interview for my checkout to get out of the military. He's not supposed to know me, but he wasn't there. So somebody that did know me had to do it. And it was this old black guy from New Orleans. His name's Gunny Thompson. And he talked like this. He was just like, it was a funny guy. And so he's like, what do you want to do with your life, Plazas? And I was like, well, shit, I want to be an engineer. I'm going to do this, that, this. And he was like, and he literally, and it's so funny because I talk to so many military members now, and I just feel so much like from where he was coming from. But he looks at me and he's just like, why are you going to do that shit? And most of us are there. We try to build up this plan because we don't want anybody to tell us. So immediately I was like, what the fuck do you mean? What are you doing that's so special that you're criticizing my plan? You know, like, what are you doing? And he mentioned real estate investing, and he was like, I'm an investor. And right now I'm actually making more money from my investing than I am with the military. And by the time I get out, I'll probably be making twice as much as I'm making with the military. And I was like, investing. I didn't even know what an asset was, right? At this time, I'd never read a book, none of that. I was just some kid that joined the Marine Corps, like just very stupid. And I was just like, what is investing? How does that work? And he told me to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Everybody, the typical story, you know, and started thinking, okay, I need to figure out investing, right? Like however it is that it works, started taking courses, mentorships, everything that I had saved up, you know, everything that I had saved up was like 12,000 or something like that from the military. In the first like 7 months, I burned it either through trying to trade or through taking mentorships or through taking courses or whatever, just because I was reading the books and they were just like, bro, you have nothing to lose. Just put it all into that shit. It'll pay off in the long run. By the time it was like 2020, right before the COVID thing, I understood it. Right. I figured it out. I was like, all right, cool. This makes sense. And so when COVID hit, I knew what to do. Right. I knew that everything dropped and I understood how it works. So I just sent out a bunch of messages to all my buddies in the Marine Corps. And I told them, buy this airline, buy this airline, buy this airline, buy this airline. They all put $1,000 here, $1,000 there. All together with everybody's money, we made probably like 250,000 in a matter of like 3 months, just from the bump, right? So everybody put in their money all together. It was like 250,000. And everybody was like, bro, teach me. And I did. And that was the birth of Six Figure Vet. And now we're here.
Moving from Colombia at the age of 3 with your family to, it sounded like Orlando, first and foremost, you know, as somebody who immigrated, you know, from Ghana, a little bit older, around 9 or so, I know it can be it can be a very monumental thing that occurs, right? Now you were a little bit younger, so maybe it wasn't quite the same for you, but you expand on that a little bit. Like what if any impacted being an immigrant have on your mindset that you've crafted that's allowed you to be successful?
Two major things, right? One of the big things for me is I was so young that I'm more American than I am Colombian, right? So where I grew up in an immigrant zone, right? So everywhere, everybody that I knew was either from Jamaica, from Haiti, from Venezuela, from Ecuador. We were all from other places, and so you could separate in school. We had the miramiras, that's what they called them, which were the people that just got here, right? Like they just got off the plane, they just got off the boat, they're still speaking the language. And then there was people like me, which we were more American, right? Like all my friends were Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Dominicans, but we never in our lives ever spoke Spanish to each other, ever, right? We were just like, well, I don't know, we weren't really like that much to the culture, and so it wasn't as aggressive, but you always have that reference. Right? The only people in America were mom and dad, right? So grandma, grandpa, every uncle, every aunt, every cousin was still there. And you could still reference the difference in the world. You know what I mean? So one of the big advantages that I'll always say is just, so I'll say it like this, right? I've never met, it's difficult to say, but we got to keep it real, right? I've never met anybody who is American, legal, Caucasian, fair in the skin, with both parents at home that hasn't thought that they come from the grind, that think that they're struggling. Everybody across the entire board, no matter where you go in the food thing, they all think that they have it the worst. And one of the privileges for us personally is knowing that we really do have it so good. You know what I mean? Like when you understand what 80% of humans experience in their day to day, and how even if you're in the hood, you got warm water, you have a pool. I grew up in a lot of places where there's shootings all the time, but we still had a community pool that was clean. Sure. You know what I mean? Like we had access to education where like a bus came. So I would say the biggest thing for me was just being able to reference how privileged I really was being in America.
Yeah. Did you ever think at a young age that you'd be in the financial space, or you'd get into money or investing, or like none of that stuff had ever crossed your mind, huh?
I thought I was going to be a barber. I swear to God, because like I said, so where I grew up, the only people that I ever saw that had money were the guys that were barbering or they were selling drugs. And I never wanted to sell drugs. That never ever like really called my attention. And so I would see the barbers and they always had, some nice sneakers. They had a car, you know what I'm saying? Like they always had cash on them. So I was just like, I could be a barber and that shit'll be straight.
That is true. That's very, very true. Now, so if you had no, you mentioned being in the military, right? And part of being in the military was your access to mentors. Now we talk about that quite a bit here on the show. Mentoring, coaching, getting somebody who's maybe even just a few steps ahead of you to kind of make the path a lot more clear. And now you've ended up kind of being in a role where you are coaching and you are mentoring as well. So clearly you would agree that it's very important. But how did you find your mentors, or did they find you, and how did you create that relationship with them where you were getting that value, that clarity that helped you kind of get on the path?
I think it's always I think it's a little bit of combination of two things, right? So you'll always have the rule of the tribe, right? And so a lot of people in the military are.
What do you mean by that?
So we like to help the people that look like us, that sound like us, that we relate to, right? And so it'll always be easier for you to see somebody that might be in your same situation, and you'd be like, come here, guy. Let me help you out here. And so because of that, and because the way that the military is, there's a lot of people that were exactly like me, little wannabe thugs out here just trying to fight with everybody, starting problems everywhere they can. So a lot of them were just like, shut up, like you're stupid, and I think it's bro, you're just lucky in the military. It's you're just lucky. Like you don't even have to pick them, right? Like I remember my best mentors were just people that they happen to be in my unit. And if you're just fucking up, left and right, if you're late here, if you're late there, they're gonna chew you out. And good or bad or indifferent, those things are extremely necessary for an 18-year-old who thinks he's the shit.
That's a big deal. Like I think, there's a reason why people go into the military, go into the armed services, right? Like at the end of the day, having disciplines and putting structure into one's life, especially a young man, like that's incredibly important foundationally. And for a lot of people, and obviously it sounds like yourself, David, like the military was able to do that for you, right? If you didn't have that beforehand, now you get some form of structure and discipline. And like, this is how I'm supposed to do things. Like you said, become a man. And, I think that's a huge benefit, right? That's a huge benefit. And it makes sense that you would find mentors in the military because there are men that have been there for a very long time and women, right, that have been there for a very long time to then be able to give you guidance and to say, hey, we've been here for 15, 20 years. So you can take some of their wisdom along with you. So, sounds like the military really kind of shifted your perspective on life. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the world. Seeing the world was a big one, right? Because unfortunately, you're a product of your environment. And if you don't ever leave, you're going to be doomed to it. But another thing was just seeing how not special rich people were, right? Because not everybody in the military is.
Break that down.
There you go. Yeah. So not everybody in the military comes from broke families. A lot of them are just Yankee Doodle dudes that are like from Texas that always wanted to serve their country,
Right.
but their parents are like brain surgeons, or their parents are business owners that have like a lawn mowing company that makes 2.5 million a year. Right. And when you meet their parents, when you meet these people and you're interacting with them and you like, oh yeah, my dad makes $250K. And it's just like, what the fuck? $250,000. How the hell he does that? And then they just explain it, and you're just like, that's not that difficult. That's actually not that hard at all. And then you meet their parents, or then you meet, somebody who's like Gunny Thompson. Oh my God, Gunny Thompson. He's a multi-millionaire guy, multiple trucks, farm and everything. Simplest dude you'll ever meet in your life. Like when I say simple, I mean, he's just a simple guy. And so that for me is just like, okay, cool. Like if he could do it, I could do it.
Absolutely. Being able to, what does it say? Like wealth isn't always flashy, right? People that are rich most times, right? The book, The Millionaire Next Door, right? Just understanding the habits and traits of people that actually do have a net worth, right? A good net worth. It's because they don't need the same things that other people that kind of use money to show off or, right, to buy clothes and those types of things. They wouldn't do the same thing. So that lesson has to be learned at some point, right? By most people, that lesson has to be learned.
It's crazy interesting, man, because I was met. You guys know the gas station in Texas, Buc-ee's, I think it's called Buc-ee's.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Big one.
Yeah. So the owners, and like literally would never so met someone that works for them, and they were telling me about the whole situation, sort of what's going on, and I mean, like, would never pick them out, blue jeans, whatever, but the cash flow is insane, right? So I think about something like that. I'm like, there's a lot of those kind of walking around. To your point, that they don't signal themselves out, etc. But the point I want to ask you actually was backtrack a little bit here. Rich Dad Poor Dad was also a fundamental book in my sort of for you as well, Chris.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's such a huge one. So I wanted you to expand a little bit on that, especially before we go into your business a little bit. Like, what was it about Rich Dad Poor Dad that really broke open the dam for you? And then do you have any other books that you followed up with to really open it up further?
You could see behind you guys, us, like that's the only way to do it.
Yes, sir.
But Rich Dad Poor Dad for me, it just showed what was possible for me. More than like actually being, something that you should follow. Cause I think it's actually a little counterintuitive to follow Rich Dad Poor Dad and look for 8 streams of income and try to do Forex, try to do this, try to do that, do a whole bunch of things. I think it's a little counterintuitive, but what it did do is it just helped me realize that, yes, you can learn investing when you're 13. Yes, you can trade stocks and do this and that. Yes, you can buy real estate. And there are a whole bunch of regular people that just figured out marketing and were able to run a business and scale it.
I think it gives such a good foundation for people. It's literally the first book I give to people that want to become entrepreneurs also. One of the, I think if I remember correctly, it's rule number 1 is the rich don't work for money, right? The rich don't work for money. So when you open a book with that, it literally changes the way you think about money right away. It shifts it, right? And then just understanding the mindset between being an employee and an entrepreneur. That's really the heart of the book, right? Yeah. The heart of the book is like, because again, there's probably some people out here that haven't read the book, and it's super instrumental in almost every entrepreneur's life.
I haven't talked to anyone that's like anywhere that's actually worth being that hasn't
read it. Yeah, that hasn't read it, because it really does give you that perspective. Really?
And they have a lot of money. It also tells me it's something totally different, like similar to what you were saying in terms of rich people aren't that special. Sometimes they also aren't that smart.
Yeah,
but
it's crazy. It's crazy. It really is.
It really is. To your point, I think why Rich Dad Poor Dad and Keen so successful is because it's about everything that we take on has a mindset component, right? So for a long time, working with my clients, and I would spend quite a bit of time working on mindset, but I didn't call it mindset. I didn't really realize it was mindset. I just knew, like, if you were thinking that way, you're not going to be successful in hitting your physical transformation goals or any other goals for that matter. All right. And so you mentioned that you had some other books as well, man. I'd love to get some, maybe towards the end of this, drop some recommendations for what you put out for your clients. But I would love to, Chris, let me know if you do. I would love to get into like 6-figure vet. Like, we talk a lot about hitting that stage where you have some extra income or what you've established cash flow. You're at a point where you can start a business. And I think a lot of people think about business in the sense of, if I'm starting a business, it has to be something that's venture backable. It's going to go public, and when you even talk about investing, I think a lot of people automatically go to stocks and trading stocks, et cetera. I think there are tons of people who know nothing about trading stocks that have made a lot of money in real estate, or they know nothing about real estate and made a lot of money in stocks, et cetera. Like, take us to the actual why you chose this particular path in the world of investing. What is your general philosophy? Break that down for me a little bit.
Yeah, so consulting. So as far as investing goes, right? Anybody who sells you investing or anything as if it's a source of income is just selling you shit. Because the way that investing works is it's a relative growth to how much you put in, right? So if you truly want to utilize investing to its maximum ability, you have to put in compound interest, right? So compound interest in health, you guys go more towards health. The key component to getting compound interest in anything that you're doing in health is time, right? Time and just maintaining there, just boom, 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 consistently doing it. That's the only way that you get that explosion after a long period of time. The same way it happens with investing.
Steroids.
Yeah.
I can't. Go ahead.
And so I got it now. I didn't get it, but then I got it now. But yeah, so with investing and with trading, the only way for you to truly be successful is if you allow it to compound over time and you don't take out anything, right? So the idea is for you to create cash flow and then have that money work for you so that you're not sitting it in an account, like a savings account or even a certificate of deposit that's going to pay you like 2%, because right now inflation's at 14, right? So I knew that I had to create some type of stream of income for my investments to work. And I mean, there's this really awesome parable that I learned that talked about, like, who made the most money during the gold rush?
Those that designed the picks.
The guy that sold the pick, right? So technically, whenever it comes to any type of investing in real estate, courses, any type of education, there's people that are looking for gold, right? That's really what it is. And then unfortunately, I try to be as transparent as possible with my students. And I try to tell them, like, you can do anything that you set your mind to, but don't try to make 1,000 out of 100. You know, don't gamble with your money, because can you go to the casino and make $1,000 in a night?
Sure.
Of course you can. You know, of course you can. How
So
can
so what? Oh, my fault, man.
go ahead.
So what exactly are you teaching the students?
I teach them how to invest, right?
Okay.
So Warren Buffett is the most successful investor that ever existed, right? $110 billion. And he did it through a specific way. And the way that I like to teach them and the way that he does it is value investing.
Yeah.
Right? Understanding the financials, you know, where are their debt to income ratios and how to read that shit, right? How to actually get into the financials and understand why it's going positive, why it's cash flowing, why it's maybe not. And then also how to read trends and patterns just to make more educated decisions, right? It's not so much about timing the market. It's just understanding that certain things are going to have higher probabilities and lower probabilities. So if we're at a certain price point, like an all-time high, in every market, when you get to the highest point, you're more than likely going to have a drawback, right? So just understanding how those patterns work so that you can make more educated decisions over time. And more importantly than anything, in my opinion, is so that you can have like the mental and emotional fortitude to, when you have those drops in the market, to when you have a recession, you don't emotionally sell at a loss and you're able to hold on, because we know that the market will always play out over time.
The investing game, the investing game can sometimes be frustrating for people. Because it's a lot of terminology. It's a lot of things that sometimes, again, we don't get taught. Think about your own story, right? Dave, like, you didn't hear the word investing until you hit your 20s, right?
Right.
So that's where most people are. And so it's a little bit scary for people to kind of go down that path. What are you seeing is like a common, like, kind of drawback, or people are saying like, is it because I can't manage my mind, or I can't manage my emotions, or I can't pick up how to read a performer or a prospectus, right? Like, what are you seeing as like the problems for people kind of getting through this investing hurdle?
Honestly, I think that it's so sad. It's just they don't know. You know, once you explain how the market works, always, it's pretty simple, and it's just a matter of understanding what you're putting your money into and not going in it as a gamble.
Yeah.
So the biggest struggle is really like when I talk to people, right? When I talk to veterans and stuff like that, why aren't you investing? I don't have enough capital. How much money you guys saved up? 5,000. What the fuck? You could have started with 50. You know what I mean? Or you'd be like, oh, you know, what's the biggest thing stopping you from investing? Man, I'm going on a deployment right now and I just don't have enough time to be watching and doing this. You buy and you hold. You don't watch this shit. You're not a Wall Street broker that's trading, you know, on the boards. Like, all you're gonna do is purchase stocks and hold them.
Right.
And it's just that. It's just a list of just mental barriers that I can imagine they heard throughout their whole life about the stock market in movies from their parents, stuff like that.
I agree. I agree. I think a lot of it's really just education or lack thereof, right? It's something I believe in a ton, because I am also in the financial space, right? So being a financial coach and kind of going down the path with people, the real problem that I always see is, like you said, a lack of capital, but that lack of capital also comes from a lack of education on like how to keep the money that comes in, right? How to make more, right? Like that, there's a lack of education. And so that's really the big part of it, because if people can get educated about how to build a proper foundation and just make sure that they do have a healthy cash flow, a healthy savings rate and investing rate, well then, good things will be able to happen. But I think that's the key, right? It's the education.
I take it back. I take it a little bit back, because at the same time, I don't know if you guys agree with me or not. I'd actually more want to hear your opinion. I talk to a lot of people that they've heard a lot. Like I was talking to a kid yesterday, and he was like, I'm just depressed. I always want to do things, but I just don't do it. And I'm like, all right, bro, this is what you want to do. You want to eliminate this type of music, this type of this. You want to do this in the morning. You want to get this amount of sunlight, and that'll allow you to da 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 da. You have a fixed, and so he was just like, you just have a fixed belief on the fact that you can change things with doing da 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 da. And like, I think that he had heard what I said enough to where he had already built up a counter argument that he wanted to sit in, because he genuinely wants to feel like he wants people to feel sorry for him. You know, he wants people to feel sorry for him. He wants his girl to feel sorry for him. And I just saw it like throughout the conversation. I was just listening to him. I'm like, you know what the fuck you have to do? You just have a good argument so that you can stay right where you are and so that you can continue to get that little sympathy and pity that you get from the people that are probably around you.
Information overload, overload and paralysis. Because I would say this, David and Chris, is that I oftentimes wonder, is it a question of like, do people have enough information, or do they have almost like too much information and they can't decipher between what is good information and what is bad information? So as a result, they don't even act, right?
Yes.
They don't say, or I don't even act, right? Because I can speak for myself, right?
Same.
You guys comment on that, but kind of for both of you guys, since you're both in the financial space, when is an individual ready to start investing? What is the checklist? And when is an individual maybe not ready to start investing? Because I do run, to your point, I do run into a lot of individuals. They don't have a job, they don't have income, they don't have anything, and they're looking to start buying stocks, and that's not really my field or what I do, but to me that sounds kind of like silly, right? Where you don't know anything and you think you're gonna strike it rich because you start buying stocks.
Yeah. No.
What do you guys say to that from both of you?
Listen,
ahead,
I have my own thoughts on it, because again, I see it all the time too, right? And it's just this mindset of getting rich quick, or understanding that like, I want it right now. That's what most people, and we're talking younger people most times, right? You get a little age and maybe a little wisdom on you, you start to understand that investing is a long-term thing, right? But sometimes if you can't grasp that, it becomes this short-term mindset of, just like you said, could be, I don't have a job, I got this little bit of money, I'm trying to turn this 100 into 10,000 by investing in these stocks, right?
Yeah.
And that's just the mindset, but that's the opposite of how we build wealth, right? And so that's the mindset that normally we're catching people in, is that, oh, I'm trying to do it quickly. And so if we can erase that side of things, it gets rid of that depression, like that kid said, like, oh, I'm depressed. Well, you're depressed because you're looking at other things or trying to move faster than what you are actually capable of moving, and it's depressing you. But if you can rid yourself of that, change the mindset and how we think about it, I think then we can make some changes.
Yeah, I agree. I think as far as when should we start investing, I think you can learn enough about investing to start investing with A Simple Path to Wealth. That's a book. So for anybody that's listening right now, just with that book, you have enough information to start investing.
Second recommendations. Make sure we get that in the show notes, Humbo.
Yeah, so definitely you just with that book, you can start investing. And then The Richest Man in Babylon, I don't know if you guys read it, but he says pay yourself. That's a beautiful book. And the way that it's told is so great. And so, you want to get that extra piece of gold. You want to get that 10%, and don't put it in a savings account if you understand how to use, the S&P 500 or something that's just really like, it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but it's going to keep you above what inflation is burning your money at.
Yeah.
I got this critical question that has to be asked from both of you guys real quick. How do you both feel about the advice given by my good uncle David Ramsey?
Uncle Dave.
Chris is a hater. David, are you a hater of Uncle Ramsey as well? Or Grandpa Ramsey, I should say?
I think that he doesn't. I think that he has advice that he wouldn't take himself for his own business.
Whoa. He ain't spicy, man. Listen. Go ahead, man. Floor is yours. Let me back up.
It's kind of like insulting his actual uncle, David. So just don't mind it. But like, he really takes offense.
So Dave Ramsey is good for the 80, right? So 80% of the human population should listen to Dave Ramsey, because that's what's going to allow you to, to stay out of debt, accumulate wealth, do all that type of stuff. But I think that if you want to become a millionaire fast, you can't. You just can't. You can't. You have to take on debt. You have to take high risks. You have to go broke 5 times, just because that's just like that. Genuinely, that's just how I feel. I feel like if you want to have a house, vacation twice a year, kids go to a decent school, 2 cars, you know, that type of thing, Dave Ramsey's the way to go. But if you're trying to be like that dude, like a billionaire, or like, you know, living in Colombia making fucking $50,000 a month or crazy shit, like you can't save your way to that. It's just difficult. I think, yeah. I'm sorry, Kobe. I don't know if I'm offending you, but
No. Me and Uncle Ramsey, we're still cool, man. We're still cool. But no, I totally do understand. I totally do understand. See, why this always comes up for me. That was Rich Dad Poor Dad opened my mind in terms of like thinking big and mindset, etc. But the practicality of what do I need to do on a day-to-day basis, Rich Dad didn't even touch that, right?
at all, not even a little bit, not even a little bit.
And that's where I think Dave Ramsey did or helped me out tremendously in a time where I didn't know exactly what to do, what direction to go in. I didn't have access to great coaches in terms of investing in finance, general finance overall, like you guys are providing, folks. So I the closest thing I had was that, and I mean, quite frankly, it saved me in terms of the basics, right? Get out of all types of debt, you know, establish a savings position, and then to start creating cash flow to actually start investing and acquiring assets.
Yeah. He's got a quality strategy, man. It's worked ever since 1960, right? Like it's a quality strategy.
It's been working since Moby Dick was a guppy.
listen. So, right? You can't beat traditional. You can't beat it. And then again, it's where most people are. We understand that Uncle Dave talks to a certain demographic. But again, just like David said, like if you want different than the masses, like you have to do different than the masses, right? And so you have to continue to take advice and learn money from a different level, not to just get out of poverty, but then to actually build wealth. And the thing that I always say to this, David, is like, yes, the investing is necessary, but there is a part of a safe liquid foundation that people need as a cushion. Because a lot of times what happens is, and the goal, and this is in my experience, right, being kind of around people in the financial coaching, financial planning space for some time, but like most people don't actually have the habit of investing because inevitably they have to pull out of their investment at some point in time, right? And that defeats the purpose of investing. But that's what happens in people's lives, right? If let's say you have no emergency fund, you got nothing really set aside, and you dump money into some form of investment accounts, right? And again, it can be lower risk, but at the end of the day, you're still risking some. And if you continue to do that, and then all of a sudden you take a life setback, you get sick, you know, you lose a job, or the business goes down, or something crazy happens, right? Then all of a sudden you can't invest as much, right? And you can't and a lot of times that stuff's not liquid. So if you do pull out, right, it might be bad timing. It might not be the time for you to touch that money, but now you're having a real like financial crisis, so you need money. That's where having a cushion or something set aside is crucial, because in any foundation, right, you got to have some safety. And then, so normally the strategy we break down for people is something we call short, mid, long, right? So short term is your 6 months, your emergency fund that's just set aside. You can put it in a high yield savings account, right? Like at the time of recording this in April of 2023, you can get a high yield savings account for 5%, 6% potentially, right? Because the banks want your money. So that could be a place for just some liquid money to set aside. And then your long-term, right? Whatever you're growing in your 10, 15 year, your nest egg, the thing that you're getting compound interest in, and it can have some risk on it. But then you really build in your midterm, right? Your 2 to 10 year, the thing that you're going to flip, the thing that you can put $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in and get it to 200,000 or 300,000. Like that's similar. It sounds like what, you know, you're doing with your students and like with the people that you're coaching, is because if you're able to grow that amount of money, right, it's kind of these midterm investments that allow you to really kind of accelerate it a little bit more. Would that make kind of
No, you hit
sense.
it on the head. I
Yeah.
think long term is what allows you to compound for real,
Yeah.
but the midterm is what allows you to get those big bumps if you're intelligent about it. If you
Yeah.
can understand how the market moves and everything like that, your swings are gonna. That's kind of the word for it. The midterms are called more swings, right? So
Mhm.
day trading, swing trading, and then long term investing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all just inside of the equities asset class, right? Just talking stocks. And I'm sure you know some people dive over into real estate, or some people dive into other forms of like venture capital or commodities or other things. But when we have the investing conversation, I think people, back to your point, could be sometimes it is information overload, where it's like you have all these options but you don't know what bucket it goes in, how much you
Right.
should go there, right? Like, you know what I mean? So I think that could
I
be
think
cleared up.
I think you guys are both, quite frankly, may have lost some people just now. Honestly. And it's not because you don't explain it well, it's just because people get overwhelmed,
Yeah,
if
they
you're
get
not in that
overwhelmed.
world. And I think that's why both of the services that you guys provide is critically important. Now, I guess my question a little bit for both of you guys is looking at that mid term investing, right? What vehicle, I think a lot of people have this question, like, what vehicle is best for me? Right? That- uh, should everybody be in stocks? Should be looking at real estate? Should we look at starting their own business? So they own what vehicle? And we talk about this quite a bit. And Chris, feel free to add or take away anything I'm saying here.
Yeah.
But we talk about that. You've got your income coming in. You're like, whatever that is, whether that's a 9 to 5, whatever that is, right? That mid part right there, the mid section investment, whatever you guys want to call
Mhm.
it. You clarify this is your field. What is the best vehicle? Yeah, this your thing, right? What is the best vehicle right there, right? Is it stocks? Is it real estate? Is it what is that vehicle for most people that you guys see?
Go ahead, Dave.
I think the best. So my advice to anybody who's just starting from zero, you got to invest in yourself. You got to invest in those skills.
We did not prompt that, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, brother.
No, but that's just it's just facts. You have to invest in yourself first, because those skills, whatever they are, it doesn't matter what it is, bro. Like if it's learning forex, if it's learning about fitness, if it's learning about emotional things, family ties, whatever it is, if you start learning about certain things, you yourself become valuable no matter what the market is. I always tell people, I'm like, bro, if internet cuts out right now and it just goes to just one-on-one work, I've invested so much in myself that I know that I could do anything, and
Yeah.
I would still be able to maintain my income. So the first thing you really need to educate yourself on personally is sales and marketing. You got to figure those two things out because they're critical in just money creation. Yeah, those are the two things. If I were to say, if the most important thing to invest in to get the biggest yield in the shortest amount of time is that, because that'll bring cash flow. Once you get cash flow, then I would say stocks, just because it's a little bit lower barrier to entry. And then for sure, you got to get into real estate, just because that's the only thing that will never lose no matter what. No, it'll never lose ever.
It could, right? Markets, but in
Wars,
general,
wars. That's the only way I
wars.
see it, right? If somebody were to come and take your land, like deproperty you, that's probably the only way, because regardless, price of land will always go up. You just gotta
Yeah.
hold it
Yeah.
Assuming
on.
you bought it correctly.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
even if you bought it bad, even if you bought
Uh,
it bad, even if you bought a house at 3 times what it's worth 10 years ago, you already made your money back.
people take losses on houses a lot, right? Like they take losses because
I,
it
I
is about timing, right?
I would be curious. I would be curious what that mechanism is. And we may be getting a little too granular here, but I'll be curious what that mechanism of taking that loss on the houses, because I see what you're saying, David, and I tend to agree. I've been, if I do have a background in any of this, it is in real estate. Real estate agent, worked with a firm for a while. But I think if bought correctly, I would agree. If bought incorrectly, I don't have experience with that, so I can't really say. But if bought correctly, I 1000% agree with you.
I would want to hear how, because yeah, Chris, tell me how unless it's like a flip, right? So I'm not talking about fixes and flips.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about anything like that. Like in a 10-year period, how could you lose on real estate?
Uh, it's a lot to actually break down right now in like this format, but if you really think about it, and if you go through this, I've done this illustration before of like getting a mortgage, right? And getting I've put the numbers together where like you get you buy a $500,000 house, and if in 10 years it goes up to $750,000 in value, you actually by the numbers still lose money on that transaction, with the costs of maintenance, with the interest payments that you're paying, with taxes, um, cost of like, doing the actual deal. Like when you actually break it down and go through the numbers, even if that house appreciated by $250,000, the owner would still technically lose money. So like there are a ton of ways that people lose money in every asset class.
But that's still not a loss unless they sold, right?
Well, that's what most people look to do at some point, because that's how you realize the asset, right? Like
That's where my key point is, right? My key point is like, at the end of the day, could you make a bad decision on stocks, on anything? Yes, of course, you could buy anything. But
yeah.
my key point is, no matter how bad of a decision, right? Let's just say you buy it 3 times for what it's worth, right? The house is worth 100,000, you pay 300,000 for it, which happened in Orlando, which has happened in plenty of places, right? Even if you pay taxes, even if you pay this, let's just say we just add an extra 5 years, you'll eventually win, no matter what. You just have to hold, and that's kind of my like big anchor on the whole. Like, if unless you sell at a loss, which it wouldn't even matter, even if you got a good deal, if you sell at a loss, you're still gonna fuck yourself.
Right. I think it's a really interesting point, because I do kind of agree with that. My caveat is, my caveat would be, did you buy it well? Because I think you're going to struggle quite a bit, right? You're going to be holding for a long time in some circumstances if you didn't buy it correctly. But with that said, though, this is really interesting. This is why we bring folks on the show, because I think we have perspectives and things that would like to get expanded upon, or even pushback on, because I think it's good for the public, the people that are watching the show, to really look at this thing from multiple different perspectives.
There's more than one way to skin a cat. People
God, leave the cats alone.
I know people don't like that.
Leave the cats alone.
But there's more than one way to do anything, right? Especially when we're coming down talking about building wealth and getting ourselves to a place where our financial goals are met. And so there's a bunch of different areas. And to kind of wrap up and answer that question again, just like what are the midterm? It's really about what you want, like, out of an investment. It's how much you actively want to manage something, how much energy you want to put into something, where do you want to get expertise, right? Some people may not want to ever read a P&L of a company, but they're okay to look at an Excel spreadsheet for their rental property, right? Like, you just never know kind of what people's skill set are. Somebody might want to run a business and be in the operations and be day to day, and somebody else might prefer to just look at a screen and trade, right? Like the actual graph. So it really just depends how active and what type of skill set people want to learn in investing.
I think that's fair.
I agree.
Fair. Yeah. With the closing question, though, bring us home here, David. Closing question here. You've already mentioned 2 books. So if you've had any other additional resources, and then let's leave us with like your top tip, right? To and who, I know you're speaking to veterans, but specifically, like, are there any other characteristics of individuals that should reach out to you and connect with you? And then what's the best way to kind of connect? So throwing all of it out.
Good to Great. Good to Great is a great book for anybody who's, trying to get into entrepreneurship and who's just trying to understand how things work. That's a great book. And then Essentialism. Essentialism is a powerful, powerful book. I got it tattooed. That was the last tattoo I ever got. It was an image from Essentialism, and it was something that I was like, I wish it would show a lot better, but
we can see.
And so, Essentialism, Good to Great. As far as a tip, I think I'll say it in a saying better, because it goes better that way. If you get a 10,000 gallons of water and you dump it over a rock, nothing will happen. But if you get a single droplet and you drop a single droplet every single day over 10,000 days, you'll split that rock in half. A lot of times we go for intensity. Really what we need to do is have consistency. If we really want to break a rock, we got to have consistency. As far as military members, I'm really niche. You know, like other people have I worked with other people, but I prefer to just work with veterans. I really like the military space. I really like, you know, the community and just how we talk and how we act between each other. So veterans, active duty, anybody in military, DOD, welcome along. And if you do want to reach me, the best place to reach me is probably Instagram, which is at David Plazas, just like you see there, 6FV, which is for Six Figure Vet.
David, we appreciate you taking the time out tonight and jumping on and again giving us some insight on what Six Figure Vet does, how you got to this place, who you're serving. Again, us all being here in this financial space could be over in the health side of things, but all of
Oh,
this is the
wow.
stuff. I know,
Could
right?
be
Like,
over
you know,
there.
yeah, you're the outcast on this show, man. You're the outcast on this show, right? But us over here in the wealth space and right this financial space, we all do something. We all have somebody to serve, and we appreciate you coming on and blessing our audience with the information, man.
I appreciate you guys having me on here, Chris. I hope to connect a lot more with you, Kobe. I'm a huge fan of your work. I love what you do. I love anything that has to do with biohacking. I love all that shit. So I feel very grateful to be here with you guys.
Such a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for joining us and for being so flexible. You dropped a lot of value today. Guys, go ahead and give him a follow. Join our group too. We're going to try to, he doesn't know this yet, we're going to try to bring him back to spread some of this good knowledge in the group here as well.
Right.
But super excited, man. Thank you so much. I feel like we really got a lot out of this episode. And if you did, let David know, let us know, and show a little bit of love, because we do a lot of this out of love. And then also to make a lot of money. No, I'm just playing.
Rule number one: do not start a podcast to make a lot of money.
That's right. Seriously. Yeah. Oh, that's great stuff.
Cool. Well, David, we appreciate having you on, man. So enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll definitely get a chance to get connected soon. Okay.
Appreciate you guys.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
man.
Yeah, man. I was saying before the show, oh man, you know, we'll kind of end when the good value drops, and apparently it never really dropped. So
That's right.
I hope you guys really enjoyed that. That was a good episode.
Absolutely, right. It's always good to have these financial conversations. There's so many different angles that allow you to get to the good life. We just want to again introduce the people that might have a different thought, different idea about how to get there. And so always good to hear the perspective, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
And if you're a veteran, if you fit that space or that group, feel free to reach out. I think it'll be a lot of help to you.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. I think that was it, man.
Until next time. Peace.